Ooh, this one is really heavy. Interesting one. It's a time for package from China. Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In today's video, we are going to be doing a chit chat about the Trimiu Smart Pro. This is a very interesting product with a lot of very cool features. It comes in 3 different colors, where I personally always love actually that retro look. But when it comes to this device, I can tell you that this is a very interesting one with updated software. Where I love this PS Vita clone thingy, it had like a lot of potential, where the software was absolutely horrible, but it seems to be they have been fixing this. So inside the package we're getting the device, this very nice piece of a cardboard with an overall explanation what the product is and what every button will do. So one of the very positive sides is that they were going to give me an SanDisk Ultra. Finally, a real brand, so we don't have the corrupting, let's say, SD cards anymore. So in here we're finding the device. Let's see which version I ordered. Completely forgot. I went for the normal white version. I already regret it a little bit because I love that really cool old school, let's say, retro vibe. So, but there were a couple of interesting features of this device that we're going to be chit-chatting about it. First of all, let's do a quick chit-chat about the internal stuff that we're getting. So the manual, normally I'm always saying the toilet paper manual, but this is not, let's say, a very bad manual itself. It comes with some good explanations about everything and how you need to do certain stuff. So I must give them some extra kudos, and underneath we're finding a very long, nice looking, quality USB-C cable for data transfer and charging. Charging, I think you need to have like a 5V, at least 2 amps, when it comes for, let's say, charging the device itself, but you can find them separately in maybe your local store or so. But let's do a quick overview of the device itself. So this is a landscape model, and most of the time these things are very comfortable to play. However, what they did absolutely great, that the analog sticks are not basically sticking into my thumbs. That is mostly like a common problem with most of these devices. The way how they made this is just great. I can press the button on the D-pad without any problem, and that has to do because of the size. They're having like this PS Vita, let's say, tiny analog switches, and this feels really, let's say, quality wise. They went for the ABXY buttons over here, but the position is right, but also very tiny buttons. But what is kind of cool, and I do really like it, that we have this very nice micro switch feel. The same goes for the D-pad. When you're looking at the way how it is actually had this very nice curve, and holding it in my hand, playing games, you hate it or you love it. Let's put it that way. 2 analog sticks, select start over here and the menu there. So underneath we're finding an FM button, then we're having the input for the power, the DC, there is even a microphone. Here we can put the SD card and headphone jack. On top we're finding volume control. We're having over here the host, they love to call it, another USB-C. Then the power, by holding it we can turn it on. And then we're having the shoulder buttons, and they're not like really trigger. We do have trigger buttons, but they're not analog, they're just micro switched. But when you guys just going to be feeling it in your hands, this thing, it's not the most comfortable device, and this has to do with the overall flat design. We have seen this before. However, Powkiddy, one of those many companies, have released like ones with those bumps or this extra grips, and I really liked it. But let's do a quick look into the firmware and software itself. How does it actually work? And yeah, the display of the thing is also quite nice. The light-up feature underneath the, let's say, analog sticks look really nice, by the way. A feature you do see very often nowadays, particularly when it comes to, let's say, other devices like Embernick. And the first time you're going to be implementing the SD card, it will automatically install the firmware Trimiu EX001. So that will take a little bit of a time, but let's see how it will look and how it will work in the end. But also known as CrossMix OS version 1.21 as making this video. But man, what did they actually do with the freaking screen protector? It looks horrible. By the way, I also noticed that there is a vibrating motor inside of this thing. I do wonder how it is when it comes to, let's say, the overall game support and the emulator and the rumble function. So here you can see we're having over here the best emulators, apps. We're having NetPlay already in the front end. Volume display, Wi-Fi, hotspot, key mapping, system, themes and Bluetooth can be activated. Language, NetPlay for refresh the ROMs. Factory reset, always be very careful with that option. Hardware test, calibrating the joystick. So there's one of the things that we can do to showcase how the joystick work. Okay, so you can see over here the edges. It's kind of weird, something doing ring, very strangely you can see over there. Okay, let's go with both joysticks. A little bit weird thing going on the left one, or no, this is just like it's supposed to be. But so far, so good. So that's kind of cool. And here having the option for the left and right joystick, so we can actually configure those. So that's absolutely cool that we can do all of those things in the software itself. But how about the emulator itself? So when you're going to be looking at the support, it's absolutely massive, and this menu looks so much better. So we're having all kinds of systems that we have seen before many times, like the Capcom 6 systems, DC or Dreamcast, DS, all the 8-bit, 16-bit handhelds, and 64, Megadoc, all kinds of weird stuff. It's kind of cool to have like Pokemini, and the support of many different devices is absolutely massive. But it's kind of cool that with best we're having all kinds of different, let's say, collections. So let's say Sonic collection, but it just goes to, let's say, some overall listing. So nothing special. Recent, favorite lists. It's one of the features I find very pleasant to use. So when you're looking at the OS, that absolutely improves the device so much. But before we're getting into, let's say, the games, so what I find very pleasant is that we're having the option, when pressing the menu button, you can just get into, let's say, the special menu, I love to call it. And with this, we can actually do all kinds of cool stuff, making quick load, quick save, having the advanced options, getting into retro arch. So there's so many cool stuff that we can do, and even having the option for net play. But beside all of that, I completely messed it up with choosing the wrong character. Yep, that's one thing for sure. However, when you're looking at, let's say, this particular game, and let's do a quick exit, and let's get back to it, it's also giving you a look how fast it will actually load up. Of course, depending on the size and what kind of game you're going to be choosing, and you can just see it automatically goes where I already was. So it's quite interesting to see what you can all do with this. So the software has so much improved from the first model. But in the next test I wanted to see how does it actually work for actually fighting. So the D-pad that I mentioned before is that it's going to be a D-pad with a micro switch underneath. And I can tell you that I started loving these things. Simple reason, because it's super responsive, and personally I have no problem whatsoever actually playing. You need to get used to it, but we have seen it before. I think it was the PS Vita had a similar, let's say, technology underneath. But yeah, I love it. I really like it because it's so responsive. We don't have any delay. When pressing it, we almost have no delay between the membrane and actually having an input. So for fighting games, I love this a lot. But let's move on into some more demanding stuff like Dead Alive. I did notice some struggles here and there. However, it's still playable. Dialogues they can also be used if you want to. Didn't test it with the Street Fighter game, but personally I don't really use that. Well, I like this overall as a design. The overall performance, you can just see the stuttering over there. The overall performance is good enough, let's put it that way. So we have some weird filter with some of the emulators, more like I can see the scanline filter going on. I don't know if the camera picks it up, because I don't find it really annoying. But with the extra bezel on the side, we do have the right aspect ratio, and it looks absolutely beautiful on this. But if you want to play some old school stuff, this runs just perfect on this. No problem whatsoever. So I want to move to one of my favorite 16-bit systems to play, the Sega Genesis. And you will just hear and see that everything works perfectly. No problem whatsoever. Also for beat 'em ups, the D-pad is great. So if you want to start running with the analog stick, it's going to be slightly difficult. That is why I'm going to be a D-pad gamer forever, particularly when it comes to these old school games. Let's crank up the volume. And that's one of the things I also love about this thing, is the audio quality. It's not like super loud, but it's quite good when it comes to that. So let's move into some more difficult emulation with the N64. So when it comes to N64, like I said a gazillion times, hit or miss with these devices now. But we are able to play. Some have some weird glitch going on. This is a great example that how it is not like supposed to be. So far everything seems to be mapped fine. Well, let's see if I can go to the game itself and see having this weird thing going on. You can see the frames are dropping to, let's say, 10 frames per second. Getting into the game. Yeah, so far so good. So in the game itself we do have some good overall emulation so far. Let's crash into some buildings. You can just see it dipping. The performance is, yeah, what I was expecting for a device like this. And if you're going to be grabbing a game like Diddy Kong Racing, it's highly possible you will have some way better overall emulation. But this is the thing what is happening. It's kind of interesting to see that we have again, let's say in price range now, that we can actually play some N64 emulation. PlayStation Portable is absolutely a cool, let's say, platform. This has simply to do with the beautiful big screen. And one of the features I love is the turbo skipping. Yep, we can just skip through, or at least have turbo function, so we don't need to have this jibber jabber freaking intro explaining how the freaking game works, because we have played it. However, so this is going to be just a fun overall mixed performance, let's say, situation. But there are still a lot of games that we can actually play and have a lot of fun with. But let's get into the game itself. And I did notice when playing the game sometimes it started to glitch out. It's quite unfortunate if you ask me. However, we do run a 30 FPS when it comes to, let's say, the game itself. So that's quite nice when it comes to the performance. You can see the glitching going on there. And I'm just going to be honest, as trying to film this, I feel really annoyed by all the freaking glitching, but also that freaking tutorials keep telling me that I need to use my freaking boost. Besides that, you can see the glitching and mixes in this freaking game, and maybe many others just unplayable. But the weird thing is, it actually does that most of the time in the beginning of the game itself. Now when looking at, let's say, the return button, you can see that the PPSSPP emulator will be shown here, and from here we need to exit. You know that is a little bit of a downside due of, let's say, different emulators, and the doggy absolutely agrees with me, is that it's kind of a little bit of a downside. However, we need to live with this, so we can also press the menu button and getting into the menu, start tweaking if you want to. Rendering resolution was on 2 times, so the overall performance was, beside the glitching, not bad at all. If you see, it doesn't even implement frame skipping. So that's quite nice. By going to be looking at the Nintendo DS with a widescreen like this, we do have the option actually to play and enjoy these games. We can mess around with the displays, but personally I think the Nintendo DS, where it has like an overall good performance, it's not going to be the ultimate experience. Simply because, let's be honest, normally we're having 2 displays, and where I don't like to emulate these games, simple reason because I just want to have just 2 freaking displays. And there are just a handful of devices out there that actually have this. But okay, it's all personal. Emulation performance is quite good. Or very good actually. So when it comes to the Trimiu, this is absolutely a great device. However, where there are so many devices out there, is this really something you should pick up? That is something you should decide. I think you need to look at what it actually offers. For to begin with, like the form factor, the display, but also the way how it plays, particularly the D-pad. I think it's a kind of interesting, unique perspective when it comes to playing retro emulation. Thank you all for watching, consider subscribing and let me know in the comments what you think of the Trimiu Smart Pro. Is it worth picking up now?